Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me from where and what time you're watching? Thanks.
It all began innocently enough. 3 years ago, I met Nikki. A simple comment on her Instagram story sparked a conversation that led to texts, Snapchats, and eventually, our first meeting. By January, we were inseparable. Valentine's Day was around the corner, and for the first time in years, I wasn't dreading it. But little did I know, the holiday would soon become a nightmare. Nikki had a secret. A dark shadow loomed over her past. A man named Ben. He was older, someone she'd met during a group project at her commuter college. At first, he seemed harmless, just another classmate. But soon, he began following her around campus, lurking in the corners of her life. She never reported him to the police, though. She thought ignoring him would make him go away. She was wrong. Ben escalated quickly. He found her address, how, she didn't know, and started sending her creepy texts. She never blocked his number, foolishly thinking she could monitor his madness. But as Valentine's Day approached, his messages grew more obsessive, more unhinged. He left a box of Russell Stover chocolates on her doorstep, accompanied by a text. "I hope you like the gift I left you." That's when Nikki finally snapped. She sent him a long, firm message telling him to leave her alone. She even mentioned me, her new boyfriend, hoping it would deter him. It didn't. A few days later, Nikki sent me a screenshot. It was a text from a fake number, asking if the guy she was seeing was me. My name. He knew my name. That's when I realized this wasn't just some harmless creep. This was dangerous. Nikki was on the verge of calling the police, and I promised to stand by her if Ben contacted her again. Valentine's Day arrived. We decided to celebrate at a nice waterfront restaurant. The evening was perfect, until we noticed him. A man sitting on a bench outside the dining area, his hat pulled low over his face, hiding in plain sight. Nikki joked, "What if that's Ben?" We laughed, but the laughter died when he tilted his head slightly in our direction, then quickly looked away. Seconds later, he was gone. The air grew heavy, and the romantic ambience turned sinister. We tried to shake it off, but the unease lingered. After dinner, we went back to my place. My parents were out of town, and we had the house to ourselves. We were on the couch, the mood shifting from romantic to something darker, when Nikki suddenly froze. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. I had. A noise from the backyard. Something heavy like a thud. I grabbed my slides and went to investigate. The backyard was eerily silent, the kind of silence that feels alive watching. The stack of beach chairs leaning against the house had been knocked over. No wind, no animals, just chaos. My heart raced as I scanned the yard. That's when I saw it. A figure, tall and still, standing in the bushes. My body went cold. I stepped closer, squinting into the darkness. "Who's there?" I demanded. The figure moved, stumbling out of the bushes with alarming speed. I reacted on instinct, tackling him to the ground before he could reach me. "Stay down!" I yelled, pinning him as he thrashed against the tangle of branches. "Nikki, call the police!" She rushed outside, phone in hand, her face pale with fear. "Is it him?" I asked. She gasped. "Oh my God, yes, it's Ben." The police arrived quickly, cuffing Ben and dragging him away. He was charged with trespassing, but Nikki didn't stop there. She showed the officers the months of harassing messages, the chocolates, the fake numbers. Ben was charged with stalking and harassment, given a fine, and slapped with a misdemeanor. Nikki got a restraining order, and for now, he stayed away. But sometimes, late at night, I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there, watching, waiting, the shadow in the bushes, the man with the hat. Ben was more than a stalker. He was a predator, a ghost haunting our lives. And though he's gone for now, I can't help but wonder if he'll ever truly disappear. 4 years ago, on a cold February evening, My boyfriend Alex and I decided to celebrate Valentine's Day with a romantic dinner. What started as a night of love quickly turned into a chilling encounter that still haunts us to this day. As we walked into the restaurant, hand in hand, I noticed a couple sitting outside. They were older, dressed in outdated clothes that seemed too formal for the casual setting. The woman's eyes locked onto us, her gaze piercing and unnerving. The man beside her sat motionless, his face blank, like a doll's. I nudged Alex, who glanced at them briefly before brushing it off. The hostess told us there'd be a 45-minute wait, so we decided to kill time at the mini golf place across the street. As we walked back to the car, the woman from the couple stood up abruptly. She introduced herself as Mrs. Greddy, her voice syrupy sweet, but laced with something off. She extended her hand, and though every instinct screamed at me to run, I shook it. Her skin was cold, like she'd been sitting in the winter air for hours. She went on about how she and her husband were photographers, how we were a perfect couple, and how we should follow them to their studio for a photo shoot. Her words were smooth, rehearsed, but her eyes, they never blinked. Alex politely declined, and as we walked away, I caught her smile. It wasn't warm, it was predatory. The mini golf place was eerily empty, which should have been our first clue to leave, but we laughed it off, trying to shake the unease. Halfway through the 5th hole, the entrance bell chimed. My heart stopped. It was them. Mrs. Greddy and her silent husband. She scanned the room, her eyes landing on me with that same unsettling smile. I whispered to Alex, and we decided to leave. As we turned to go, they were suddenly behind us. Crazy how we both ended up here, Mrs. Greddy said, her voice dripping with false cheer. Then her husband spoke for the first time, his voice low and gravelly. We should face each other, Greddy versus Rod. Alex froze. Rod was his last name. How did they know that? We bolted, our hearts pounding as we rushed to the car. The real terror began on the drive home. The road to Alex's house was long and dark, lined with dense trees that seemed to close in around us. That's when we noticed the car behind us, its headlights glaring in the rearview mirror. Alex tried to lose them, pulling into a CVS parking lot. We went inside hoping to throw them off, but when we came out, the car was gone. Relieved, we continued home. But halfway down that desolate road, we heard a loud pop. Both front tires had blown out. Alex's face went pale. Get out of the car, he whispered urgently. They did this. They're coming. We ran into the woods, the cold biting at our skin. Alex called the police, his voice trembling as he explained our location. But before the operator could respond, we heard it. A car engine approaching. We dropped to the ground, hiding behind a thick bush. Mrs. Greddy's voice cut through the silence. We took too long, she said, her tone sharp and angry. A car door slammed and the engine roared as they sped away. We stayed hidden until the police arrived, but by then, the couple was gone. The officers took our statements, but nothing ever came of it. No leads, no answers. To this day, we don't know who they were or what they wanted. Alex and I are married now, and we've told this story countless times. But every Valentine's Day, I can't help but glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see Mrs. Greddy's cold smile in the shadows. It was the fall of 2018, and I was taking online classes through a prestigious college, biding my time before transferring to my hometown university for the winter semester. I was lonely, so I decided to try my luck on Tinder. That's where I met her, Alex. She was smart, funny, and we clicked instantly. Funny. We started dating, and for a while everything was great. But after Thanksgiving break, something changed. Alex had always been sarcastic. but her teasing turned sharp, almost cruel. I brushed it off as stress from finals, but deep down, I knew something was off. She went home for winter break, and we stayed in touch through texts and occasional FaceTime calls. But when she returned, the distance between us grew. She was homesick, missing her family, her friends, her pets. She was shy, and aside from me and her roommate, who she didn't get along with, she had no one. We broke up shortly after the winter semester started. It was mutual, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd dodged a bullet. A few weeks later, Valentine's Day rolled around, and I found myself alone. Most of my friends were coupled up, so I reactivated my Tinder account, hoping to find someone to spend the holiday with. That's when I matched with another Alex. This Alex was different. She had shoulder-length blonde hair, cute glasses, freckles, and bright blue eyes. We hit it off immediately. She wasn't into the bar scene, preferring to stay in and watch movies, just like me. We made plans to spend Valentine's Day together. The night started off perfectly. We grabbed McDonald's, saw a movie, and walked around downtown. Eventually, we ended up back at my apartment. Things got intimate, and she asked to stay the night since it was snowing and her place was a 10-minute walk away. I agreed, and we fell asleep around 1 a.m. I woke up to Alex getting out of bed. I didn't say anything, just watched as she walked to the bathroom, turned on the light, and shut the door. I drifted back to sleep, but at 5:30 in the morning I woke up again. Alex wasn't in bed. The bathroom light was off and her clothes were still on the floor. That's when I heard it, a creak from the corner of the room. I turned and saw Alex standing there, her back to me. My heart raced as I called her name, but she didn't respond. I turned on the bedside lamp and approached her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Alex?" I said softly. For a moment there was silence. Then she spun around with inhuman speed, her face blank, and started screaming. She lunged at me, hitting me over and over. It wasn't hard, but it was relentless. I fell back onto the bed and she followed, her screams echoing in the small room. After what felt like an eternity, she grabbed her clothes and bolted out the door, leaving it wide open. I locked the door and noticed a foul smell coming from the bathroom. When I opened the door, I was hit with the stench of feces. The shower curtain was ripped down. My medicine bag was scattered across the floor and the mirror was smeared with filth. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, Alex was gone. Her Tinder and Snapchat profiles had been deleted, and the only evidence I had was a single screenshot of her with a Snapchat filter. The police took a report, but couldn't do much else. They advised me to have a friend stay over in case she came back. I called my best friend Rob, who came over that night. As we talked, I showed him the picture of Alex. He frowned. "I've never seen her in class," he said. The next morning, around 3 in the morning, I woke up to the sound of someone trying to open the front door. I waited, my heart pounding, until the noise stopped. I looked through the peephole, but no one was there. Nothing has happened since, but I still can't shake the feeling that Alex, or whoever she was, is out there, waiting. Every creak, every shadow, makes me wonder if she'll come back. And if she does, what will she do next? It started with a single message. 2 years ago, I was scrolling through an app called Glow, a place where people shared snippets of their lives in pictures and short posts. I came across a photo of a girl named Lila. She was standing in front of a mural, her dark hair catching the sunlight, and something about her smile made me pause. I left a comment, something simple like, "That mural looks amazing." "Where is it?" she replied. And before I knew it, we were talking every day. Texts turned into video calls, and by the time winter rolled around, we were inseparable. Valentine's Day was coming up, and for the first time in years, I wasn't dreading it. I had plans. I had Lila, but I didn't know then how quickly things could unravel. Lila had a past she didn't talk about much. It wasn't until we'd been dating for a few months that she mentioned someone named Marcus. He was older, someone she'd met during a summer internship. At first, he seemed like just another coworker, but then he started showing up where she didn't expect him, outside her favorite coffee shop near her gym, even at the park where she liked to read. She never reported him. She thought if she ignored him, he'd get bored and leave her alone. But Marcus wasn't the kind of person who got bored. Things escalated fast. He found her address, she never figured out how, and started sending her messages. Not just texts, but long, rambling notes that made my skin crawl. She didn't block him. She said she wanted to keep an eye on him, to know what he was planning. But as Valentine's Day got closer, his messages turned darker. He left a package on her doorstep, a small box of expensive truffles with a note that said, "I hope you enjoy these as much as I enjoy watching you." That was the last straw. Lila sent him a message telling him to back off, that she was with me now. She thought it would scare him away. It didn't. A few days later, she showed me a screenshot. It was a message from a number I didn't recognize, asking if the guy she was dating was me. My name. He knew my name. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just some guy with a crush. This was dangerous. Lila was ready to call the police, and I told her I'd be there every step of the way if he contacted her again. Valentine's Day came, and we decided to celebrate at a cozy little bistro by the river. The place was lit with fairy lights, and the air smelled like fresh bread and herbs. It should have been perfect. But halfway through dinner, I noticed a man sitting at the bar. He was wearing a hoodie, the kind that hides your face, and he kept glancing in our direction. Lila caught me staring and followed my gaze. "What if that's him?" she whispered, her voice tight. We laughed it off, but the laughter died when he tilted his head just enough for us to see his eyes. They were cold, unblinking. Then he stood up and walked out. The warmth of the evening vanished, replaced by a chill I couldn't shake. We tried to push it out of our minds. After dinner, we went back to my apartment. My roommate was out of town, so we had the place to ourselves. We were on the couch, the TV playing some old movie neither of us was really watching, when Lila suddenly froze. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I had. A loud thud from the balcony. I grabbed my shoes and went to check, my heart pounding. The balcony was empty, but the potted plants I kept out there were knocked over, dirt scattered across the floor. There was no wind, no animals, just silence. I scanned the area, my eyes adjusting to the dark, and that's when I saw him. A figure, standing in the shadows of the trees beyond the balcony. My breath caught. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. The figure moved, stepping into the faint light. It was Marcus. He didn't say a word, just stared at me with those same cold eyes. I didn't think, I just acted. I lunged at him, tackling him to the ground before he could react. "Stay down!" I shouted, pinning him as he struggled. "Lila, call the police." She came running, her phone already in her hand. "Is it him?" she asked, her voice trembling. I nodded and she gasped. "It's Marcus." The police came quickly. They cuffed him and took him away. But Lila wasn't done. She showed them everything, the messages, the chocolates, the fake numbers. Marcus was charged with stalking and trespassing. and Lila got a restraining order. For a while, it felt like it was over. But sometimes late at night, I'll wake up to the sound of the balcony door creaking. I'll check, and there's never anyone there. Still, I can't shake the feeling that he's out there, watching, waiting. Marcus wasn't just a stalker. He was a shadow, a ghost that lingers even when you think you've escaped. And no matter how much time passes, I can't help but wonder if he'll ever really be gone.